Alright, traction motor bearing units, introduction, design, feature, extend, service, life of the design, location, position, the design with a non-locating position, sensorized designs. Traction motor design unit with the traction motor bearing unit design offer the maintenance-free solution for the extended service with an interval solution being the very compact space servicing space saving the design with a total motor length that can be reduced given the motor envelope of the iron length of the rotor and stator can be improved with the achieve the higher power rating of the system. The design principle incorporates several features with one line unit like grease and sealing the location function with the integrated flange for the design enables it very easily mounting. To develop the design with a complete bearing with a range with the dam, with the logistics of the bearing, with the surround, with the part, with the shield, with the wash, with the bolts and screw, with the mount, everything properly required, with a lot of the effort and time with the maintenance, with the traction motor, with the traditional bearing, with the range, with the design, demands a lot of skill with the workmanship, with the logistics, overall cost of the OEM, the customer is operated with the multiply, with the purchase, bearing purchase cost, with the additional cost, with the partially observed, with the obvious, but also him with the cost of the calculation customer. On the other hand, with the potential risk curve with the sever here for failure with getting right with the demanding complexity design. The traction motor bearing unit shield with the lubricated bearing unit with the design with the flange mounting with the housing special grease with the select with the achieve with the extend grease life at the very high operating temperatures. Bearing units equipped with non-contact labor and seal and do not wear the bearing can be offered with a hybrid design ceramic roller elements to prevent the damage and cause electrical current passages. Sensor for the electrical operating condition, optional feature for the electrical installation monitoring and operational data like temperature and speed, absolute positioning, propulsion system control. Alright, introduction. Early bearing design with the bearing with the industrial roller bearing with the first developed in 1970. The design were tailored to very specific applications. Some of these designs have already incorporated flame for the easier mounting with the wear with the equipped with a similar simple gap type sealing. Standardization. Later, except for the roller bearing installation and industrialization very much relate with the same boundary dimension. The aim to make with the design element of the interchange for the roller bearings became a universal solution with a higher range for the bearing with the different applications. Dutch Waffen mutants of Alaskan in Berlin, Germany, 1900s published the first bearing table to serve with the contact bearing with the dimension bearing load ratings. Some of the principal bearing boundary dimensions even today's most common include with the ISO standard. This customization based on the daily communication with the traction motor bearing customers, along with the term applicant for the engineering experience, allowed the applicant for the topic occur with the M in the area, are mainly designed with the logistic mounting of the maintenance issue for the conform with the requirement for the customer, with the subcontract with the proper bearing with the installation cannot always be easily fulfilled, with sometimes only demanding with a specialized industrial automotive railway standard bearing with the wear were lively first half of the 20th century for the introduction customized bearings for the city starting in the 1950s in the SKF Railway Technical Handbook Volume 1. The development of the current assortment of the cylindrical tapered roller bearing units wheel set is already present. Detail with the UV the seal of the factory grief of the 1991. The first SKF centralized wheel bearing unit the cover to detect with the operating of the parameters leg speed with introducing additional incorporated variable vibration sensor for the detect of the bearing performance observed with the condition mounting serve with the mounting system with the goal of each room of the design with the minimize the handling of the mounting and maintenance of the several components to achieve the development of the one subsystem and incorporate several functions. Okay, and then show the example of the flange bearing with the LW Boyer 1886 with the roller bearings guide with the set with the inserted smaller rollers insulated with a 322 for a series with a deep groove with the ball bearing 8W and DW4 1906 with the analog bearing with the design already the boundary 10 inch for the standard ISO later. For the example, 6322 with a 110 millimeter bore, 240 millimeter outside diameter, 50 millimeter width, and 3 millimeter chamfer. Alright, the redesign to aim at the achievement of the customer focus with the traction motor bearing solution have with the lower demand the design location logistic behind with the main the idea was born early in the 1990s by requesting the conventional design principle that the past several decades. Cost value of the design should be achieved with a much higher, but the reliable extent of the maintenance intervals the end up with low total cost. Based on either life cycle of the ownership, the development target was taken with a tailored special solution with us the way the far more with the application combustor oriented. The investigation was based on the use of the development tools like advanced design calculation testing tools as well as reinforcement material and new production. Techniques, complete new design based on the laboratory seal of the factory grease bearing with electrical insulation option, integrated sensors for the monitoring operational data. Alright, customized bearing with the apply with the design principle in the way with the similar with the automotive wheel with the bearing with the axle bearing units. The similar bearing arrangements were developed further that they were pre-lubricated seal with the bearings, furthermore integrated with the plane with a bunch more the either design logistic handling with the Easter mount with the componentry additional integrated with the surmounting operational parameters like speed and bearing temperature. This shows the car wheel, single bearing, double element of automobile railway sheet bearing with a traction motor application show for the car wheel, single bearing, sealed pre-lubricating bearings, centralized bearing units, and also railway axle boxes and single bearing, single pre-lubricated bearings, and centralized bearing units. Railway traction motor shows single bearing, single seated pre-lubricated bearing, and then the centralized bearing units. Design feature compactness. For the traction motor bearing units idea based on the substitution conventional strength of the impulse of the ring can be longer than diameter, but needs additional axle space with addition with a complex labyrinth seal with the not need the lowest. A lot of applications substituted as well with the next step of the introduction of labyrinth seal centralized with the flange unit, even if the handle over the mount. Consequently, the traction motor bearing unit, the insulation space saver that can be achieved with the complete traction motor arrangement that helps increase the steering and rotor length with the result of increased power with given the geometrical motor envelope. Internal design with the step of the rolling element is designed based on the ball bearing, you with the locating position with the design with the one cylindrical roller bearing, you with the non-locating position of the pinch diameter that depends mainly on the inner and outer ring dimension of the bearing with the technical traction motor bearing unit, the design principle with the provide with the possibility selecting and optimizing some of the number of the rolling elements to achieve a certain load rating with the sum of the traction motor applications, especially with the coupling drive. Bearing loads are relatively small in comparison to the load with the rating with the standard bearing given with the bearing envelope, in this case of the bearing units insufficiently low with during the operation additional wear occurs. Shift of the conventional traction motor bearing insulation with the non-driver side, the impulse with the ring sensor with the torque wheel with the labor and seal with the components being replaced. The also shows the sensorized traction motor bearing installed in the non-driver side of the sensorized traction motor bearing units being installed with an integrated center for the flange for the easy mounting, integrated seals, and space saving. Our feature solution with all seal bearing, interco bearings, hybrid bearings, thermal, hybrid technical motor bearing units, protection against electrical heat generation, speed capability, grease life resistance, contaminated environmental, minimal load capability, mounting simplification, service maintenance requirements, saving the remanufacture, and integrated sensoring options. Your flange design. The traction motor bearing unit with the design principle of incorporating with the integrated flange with enable the manufacturer to achieve the easier bearing insulation with the traction motor bearing unit with the flame that can be directly bolted onto the housing in addition with the traction motor bearing unit with the inside side of the mansion with the preferred range with the customized bore and pitch diameters can be accumulated to provide optimized traction motor design. Additional bearing design, additional specially drilled taped hole with the flange can be provided, accommodated with withdrawal bolts with the facility dismounting. Protection again with the contamination. Conventional traction motor bearings have the open design need to be grieved during installation. Some of the cables necessary, but the cleanliness cannot be easily achieved. The contaminants can either enter the bearing, which will reduce the bearing life with dramatically the technical traction motor bearing unit with the factory with the relocated bearing with the particular with the labyrinth seal with the both side of the labyrinth seal operates without friction, does not wear, and can be used with many applications. In some cases, such as the traction main traction motor bearing units, they directly expose the environmental additional seal of the devices may be necessary. Electrical insulation. To increase the reliability of electrical insulation, rely with either intercoating with a hybrid design, ceramic, silicone, nitrate rolling elements, hybrid bearings design, feature for the upgrade with the performance electrical insulation, achieve much for the longer maintenance intervals, help the operator to reduce life cost cycles. Extended service life. Extended service life. Always, as already mentioned on the page 15, there is a growing trend for the extent of the maintenance with the interval with the traction motor the bearings that are incorporated. Then with the depth of investigation frame with the long maintenance with the interval with the grease lubricated traction motor bearing with the achieve the operation depending with the application parameters. A number of the different factors they consider the sense of the start of the first traction motor bearing unit, the implementation of the 1996 with the main different application parameters covered with the current term of the mainly locomotive with multiple units of mass transfer vehicle with the tram car with the trolley bus and several years with the collection field with the test result with the traction motor bearing units without re-lubrication were systematically documented with one several practical example of the mention in the 168. In this case, the traction motor bearing unit was in service with the locomotive for 12 years without any re-lubrication. There was an operation more than 1.5 million kilometers. There was almost no wear, and the grease was found in very good condition. The bearings have been manufactured, returned to operating with further use of the outstanding proper Broad experience with the base for the development of the new optimized Grief Life model. New optimized Grief Life guidelines for the traction motor bearing unit with the base for the experience with the SKF developed the new and optimized Grief Life with the guideline with the base for the Grief Life with the model with the considerations of the parameters optimized bearing design, especially with regard for the number of the side with the rolling further improve with the cage design with the labor and seal with the protect with the bearing with the system with again for the contamination spring grease with the type of the quality with applied with the high cleanliness during the factor some with the grease in addition with some of the application special factors need to be considered speed cycle load pattern vibration temperature cycle with the humidity contamination etc. Based for the new SKF degree optimized Grief Life model existing Grief Life with calculation can be found with the SKF catalogs online with SKF bearing grease performance factor with the suitable Grief with the copy can be held with the SKF catalog with the tools available, the SKF bearing with the page 160 down seal with the open traction motor bearing with the final Grief with the selection manufactured with the and grease type with the initial base made by the traction motor manufacturer. In some cases, the operator makes has his own grease selection based on the commercial and application specific region with the pre-lubricated seal with the traction motor bearing units of the grease selection when is made by the SKF. Application special factors, and the further consideration made with the new calculation model with the specific application for the parameters used with the specific correction factor for the bearing temperature for the vibration level of the track load during the operation environmental effect with light humidity airflow through the bearing vertical shaft applications, outer ring rotation calculation principle consider for the application specific factor for the corrected grease life of the calculated the corrected grease life of the relubrication interval is equal to the relubrication interval at 7 degrees Celsius to be relubricated times life adjustment factor and then correct the application factors. Bearing related factor for the addition with the application specific factor with the further bearing related bearing performance factors consider the bearing unit factor with the factor for the two depending on the traction motor bearing units design of the bearing material factor. This can be a factor with two with the ceramic rolling bearings and incorporated with the cage with the performance of the factor with the two wheel specific roller mix guy with the brass cage with the U with the max gasket with cage with the center with the rolling and outer ring. Calculation principle consider the related factor for the optimized grease life with the calculated with the conservative bearing related with the performance factor T optimized equal to T grease bearing performance factor. The calculation example the based on the specific application when the specific bearing grease related correction factors are selected with the optimized grease life with being calculated for the technical traction motor bearing units application. By using the same grease and the same K for the optimized Grief Life can be increased with the factor of 2 with the traction motor bearing unit with the all steel material combination. By using the same grease and the same K for the optimized Grief Life can be increased by a factor of 4 with the hybrid traction motor bearings and design steel bearing rings and ceramic rolling elements. Let me pause this. Using the same grease for the optimized K for the optimized with the grease life can be increased with the factor for the 8 for the hybrid traction motor bearing unit. The design with the steel bearing ring with the ceramic rolling of the factor can be only applied with the optimized K for the design was not used for additional information for the specific customer application contact SK for the application engineering services. Apply to SKF optimized Grief Life conditions, the dark blue relubrication at 70 degrees Celsius, and then T optimized with a T grease bearing performance, standard bearing with traction motor bearing units, hybrid traction motor bearing units, hybrid traction motor bearings with optimized cage. Alright, the designs for the locating position traction motor bearing units, design location arrangement, the base for the deep groove ball bearing, design with the shield with the pre-lubricated bearing, the head for the integrated flame for the outer ring with the V-bolt with the traction motor shield with the combinated traction motor bearing unit with the C with the motor shield with typically machined with the 8-7 tolerance class. Electrical insulation can provide with either applying with the hydraulic hybrid bearing design with the base for the ceramic balls and an electrical insulating intercoat layer with the external surface of the inner ring of the traction motor bearing unit that are customized design with it can be further to retailer to meet these specific requests. Applications exist example for the traction motor bearing unit with a locating position and also all steel traction motor bearing unit with a locating bearing arrangement based on the deep ball groove bearing design, the flange outer ring corrosion protection shield, optimize internal geometry, alternative hybrid ball bearing design with a ceramic ball, large grease reservoir laminate seal with electrical insulating intercoat coating with the external surface of the inner ring and not applied with the case of the hybrid bearing design used. Preferred range. With the preferred range based for the assortment of 2012 of the range delivered in collection will update with the published in future. Feature the benefit of the traction motor bearing units designed with the location, position, space, saving the fewer parts of unit concept that enables very easily mounting labor and seal with grease extend with the maintenance interval of the traction motor bearing units locating position. Show the of the parameter lengths. Designed by the non-locating position, the traction motor over the I just got that. Alright, the traction motor bearing with the non-locating arrangement of the base with the cylindrical roll bearing design with the shield with a pre-lubricated with the bearing integrated flange with the outer ring with the bolt with the traction motor shield. Electrical insulation can provide with the applying with the electrical insulation integral coating the external surface with the inner ring outer unit, the hybrid bearing and equipment with a silicone nitride roll with the traction motor bearing unit. The customized design can be further tailored to meet with the specific requests. Show the application example of the traction motor bearing with a non-locating position, and then it shows the hybrid traction motor bearing unit with a non-locating bearing arrangement based on the cylindrical roller bearing design, flange outer ring with the corrosion protection shield, optimized internal geometry roller design, hybrid design, ceramic rollers, large grease reservoir, and laminate seal, insulating integral coating with external surface with the inner ring, and in the case of the electrical steering. In the case of all steering steel bearing design used. Preferred range of the best to over the September 2012 of the range of the living collection update with the published and future need with the feature for the benefit of the traction motor bearing design with an unloading position, space saving the fewer part with the unit concept and able to very easily mount with a labyrinth seal with extended with the intervals traction motor bearing units for the non-locating position, their parameters and their widths and sensorized designs. Sensorized traction motor bearing unit with the concept of the office have the different detection measurement with the operative with the incremental lens sensor unit with the integrated with the labyrinth seal with the outer ring with the bearing unit with the design with the space saving, especially with the axle direction. Compared with the conventional sensor device with the space saving and divine fewer parts than provide higher resolution accuracy with a robust design, longer bearing life. Sensorized design with the absolute position detection, traction motor control device detection with the direction, rotation speed measurement of the brake control system, temperature with the measuring the mounting operational conditions. Sensorized traction motor bearing unit designed with the locating bearing arrangement. You have your cable connected flange, outer ring of the printed circuit board, impulse ring, and the optimized internal geometry of the bearings with ceramic ball bearings. This shows your traction motor bearing unit with a non-locating bearing with arrangement, the cable connected flange outright and printed circuit board impulse ring, optimized internal geometry bearing with ceramic rollers. Chapter 6, Bearing Calculation.